In today's episode of the Morales Group Show, we have Joey Ramos with Zoom Casa. He is going to be explaining to us, how does the Zoom Casa cash offer work? In other words, how does their forward program work? Welcome to the show, Joey. How are you?
Very good, Jose. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to do this video because I primarily represent sellers, and I've had offers from you guys, and I've never actually have dug completely into how the process works. And to be quite honest, I was a little bit confused. So I'm imagining that there's other agents that feel the same way. So I'm hoping that this video helps agents understand the forward program and understands how this can actually be an asset for them if they add this tool in their tool belt. So let's jump right into it. Like, what is the forward program at Zoom Casa?
If you ask some of the agents I work with nationwide, and as you know, we work in 50 states, they'll probably have different versions and explain why. But let me ask you first, if that's okay, Jose. Have you ever sold your car before?
So I've done it different ways. So when I was younger, I've sold cars like direct owner to owner. Then I done trade-ins, and then I've even taken them to like CarMax to basically just get an offer on the car. So I've done it different ways. As I get older, I'm more inclined to basically do like a trade-in or something like that now.
Any particular reason why you shifted from selling it in the open market or dealing with the direct consumers as opposed to just selling it to the dealership like CarMax?
It's just a lot simpler of a process, basically.
Let's bring that context into a real estate transaction. As you know, when a seller is looking to sell quickly in a matter of days, typically the options they have is selling it to a traditional investor or selling it to an iBuyer. Usually, iBuyer will buy the property at a deep discount, and when a seller hears the word cash offer, typically they would assume right away that they will get a lowball offer, and then the investor will purchase the property, prepare them for resale, and keep all the proceeds. Now, if you as a listing agent, you see the potential of getting more eyeballs, you probably would suggest to your seller or to your client to put it on the open market. So you have the ability or the potential of getting more eyeballs and getting more multiple offers. However, some of the challenges when doing that, if the property is not turnkey ready, then you may have to advise your client to put some TLC to get more opportunities of selling the property at a higher price. Some challenges there is if they have kids, if they have elderly living in the property, or they have some pets, or they have some family members that are having some challenges, like health challenges, then it's hard for them to showcase the property 24/7 in a showcase condition. And so the reason why forward program was conceived is because of this type of challenges for the sellers and the listing agent. And so our forward program is more of a hybrid approach, meaning it's like you're dealing with a cash buyer because we can close within 10 to 14 days. And at the same time, you have the ability to increase the value of the property by doing some home improvements. Does that make sense so far?
It does. And I guess that's the part where I would want more clarification as to how it works. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you guys are partnering up with homeowners to help them renovate their property. So I have a particular situation right now where we have it listed for like $1 million. We received the cash offer from an investor like at 920. The owner wants a little bit more money. The investor is going to turn around and flip it, but this may be like an ideal candidate for something like that. So how does it actually work? Like, meaning like, do you guys, like, if you guys offer 900,000 for the property, do you guys pay all 900,000 up front? Does the owner still own the property while you guys are doing renovations? What does that look like?
The seller will not receive 100% right away. So if I step back a bit, Zoom Casa is actually reinventing the way sellers sell their homes for cash. Because as I've mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, if the seller hear the word cash offer, typically they assume that it's going to be a lowball offer. So with our forward program, we actually turn the standard model around. It's not really a negotiation of a price, since we buy the property based on the market value. And what I mean by that is we get a third-party appraisal from an AMC company. Then we purchase the property based on that, and then we close within 10 to 14 days, and the seller receives certain percentage of that appraised value. So they get a majority of the proceeds so the seller can pay off their mortgage if applicable so they can unlock majority of their equity. And then we prepare the property for resale and manage any renovations that the sellers authorize us to do. And this is optional. We purchase properties nationwide that are turnkey ready. And sometimes the reason why they want to go the Zoom Casa route is they just don't want to be a contingent buyer on their next purchase. And this applies specifically on a hot market. So going back, after we renovate the property, we put it in the open market with you as the listing agent. And upon the resale of the property, the seller gets the additional proceeds based on how much we sell it for. If we sell it for more, the seller gets more and vice versa. And the way we get compensated is we do have a fee based on the resale price. It averages around 6 to 10%. It could be more, it could be less. And with our fee structure of 6 to 10% of the resale price, if you do the math, the seller is actually getting approximately 90% or sometimes more of the resale price or the after repair value. The only difference is they're getting two checks and they get majority of it within the first 2 weeks or so. So the reason why I've mentioned that our program is more of a collaboration with you and the listing agent is because our goal is aligned together, meaning if we sell the property at a higher price, it benefits us as a company because our fee is based on the resale price. It benefits the listing agent because they get more commission by selling the property at the higher price because it's updated. And it's also benefiting the seller because they are getting more money based on that. And the sooner we sell it for, the better for everybody because that's the only time we get reimbursed on all the funds we put up front, and that's the only time we get compensated. And same thing for everybody else.
So basically, you guys buy the property, there's a holdback, and then once you guys close on it, then you guys renovate the property, then sell it, and then the seller receives a second check just depending on whatever the property sells for. Is there a certain percentage for the holdback? Like, is it typically like they get 60% of their money on the first check? How does that typically work?
It really depends on several factors. Number one, the condition of the property, meaning if it's turnkey ready, the higher the advance that our company can accommodate. If the pocket is good, especially here in LA County and Ventura County, we have no issues with that. If it's not in a very rural area, we can accommodate higher advance rate. It can range from 50 to 70% of the as is value.
And what's the purpose of the holdback? Just out of curiosity, like why not give the homeowner the entire amount basically at the time of closing?
There's a lot of factors why we do that. Number one is the risk for the company. And so if it's going to take longer, that means our funds will be tied up on the property for a longer time. And that's why we just, our underwriting team thinks it's better if we just advance a portion of it.
So basically, like I heard structures that are like, hey, look, I buy it at a certain price and then we split the profit of whatever it is. It's not like that. The homeowner's getting to keep all the profit. And then there's just a fee of anywhere from 6 to 10% basically on it. So if there's a chance that the homeowner walks away with, is it more money if I'm understanding correctly?
Sure. So majority of the time, if there's enough spread between the as is value and the after repair value, the seller can potentially get more because we only get 6 to 10% of the resale price. Now, there will be some instances wherein they're just going to break even if there's not enough spread between the as is value and the resale price. And there's a lot of reasons why that can happen. However, the benefit that the seller can get is they can sell the property sooner because they get majority of it within a matter of days. But it's not always going to be more if the property stays longer in the market.
You said that the owner determines the repairs, or that you guys in collaboration with the owner determine the repairs. How do you guys determine what repairs? Let's say that you buy my property at a 900,000. What guarantees me that you guys are going to be putting it back on the market with renovations at a higher price? Like, what guarantees me that you guys aren't just going to buy it at 900 and put it right back on the market at 900 and then charge a 6 to 10% fee?
Basically, the seller will have full control rights in terms of the renovations. What I mean by that is once we are under contract, the first 2 weeks will be the most crucial part because that's the time we're going to order home inspection from a third-party company and then get appraisal from an AMC third-party company. That's also the time our project managers and designers will obtain bids from contractors. And then once we have those things, we will present it to the seller. Hey, based on what the market is saying, this is how much we can potentially sell the property for. Of course, with the help of the listing agent, because since we do buy properties nationwide, we always work with the agent who's going to be listing it. We want to make sure that the after repair value is realistic. We want to be conservative as much as possible. Now, during those first 2 weeks, we will present it to the seller. And for some reason, let's say it ended up we have to spend more money on the renovation, because at the end of the day, the renovation will be coming from the funds, from the proceeds. So the higher the investment on the renovation, that's going to impact the seller's bottom line. So if putting more money doesn't really increase the value that much, then we will tell them, hey, it's probably better that we just clean it up or do some staging. And then, of course, we'll get some information from the listing agent as well. Now, during that time frame, during the first 2 weeks, let's say the seller is not happy with the renovation budget. We can either adjust it. We can either talk to the listing agent as well, see if it makes sense for us to just pick and choose the renovation that we are suggesting, or the seller has the right to back out with the transaction. We don't have a cancellation fee, but if you look at our contract, the cancellation fee is actually just reimbursement of the expenses we've incurred at that time. And typically 99.9% of the time, we've only spent home inspection and the appraisal at that time. The good thing about that is, let's say there's a change of heart for the seller and they don't want to move with the closing, we can cancel that. We just require that we get reimbursed on those two expenses, and we're not going to make any money on those. It's going to be at cost, and they get to keep the home inspection and the appraisal.
So you can open up escrow basically on a property, and then during that period, you guys are ironing out what the seller and the agent are going to list it for after the rehab gets done, and then also like different estimates as to what it would cost to renovate the property basically on the property basically. Is there ever a time where like you invest more than what the increased sales value is, and where the seller makes less money than what the original appraisal came back at?
Last year, I have a deal in Washington State, and that happens because there was like tenants that the listing agent didn't disclose. However, the seller was very honest about it once we are under contract, and so we thought we were going to be able to let the tenant go. And but since they stayed more, we couldn't do the renovations. And so what happened was the seller didn't get the money that they're hoping for.
So let me ask you this: like, let's say I have a client, you make them an offer at 950,000,
Mhm.
and is that like a guaranteed offer that I'm walking away with 950,000 at the end of the day? Or is there a chance that like if something like the renovation goes over budget, or let's say that the market crashes 10% during that period, is there a chance that that 950 could be modified to 900,000 when I get my second paycheck, basically?
That is correct. So in the event that there's a market shift, everybody will have the risk of not getting the money. Because, for example, we advance 70% and all of a sudden there's a huge drop on the market and we won't be able to recuperate the 70%. So everybody loses. I know when that happens, probably it's only going to happen when there's really a huge dip in the
Yeah.
market. That's why we want to be conservative, especially when I work with listing agents nationwide. I'll be sometimes the first one to tell them, hey, I think it's better that you just put it on the market, not unless the seller wanted to cash out quickly, because probably they have job transfer and they want to cash out quickly. At least they know that, okay, I'll get majority of the money and then I'll just wait. I don't have to get involved in leaving to showing the property while waiting.
Who's your ideal property for this program? Is it properties that need more work? Is it properties that need less work? Who's the ideal client for this?
We do all types of work. It can be a heavy rehab or a light cosmetic update. But in a perfect world, we would prefer a property that can be put back on the market right away, because that's the only time we get our money back. And for the seller, it's going to be lesser fee the sooner we can resell it for, because we do have a holding fee, and the sooner we can sell the property for, the better for the seller as well.
Is there like certain projects that you guys just stay away from? Like if something had foundation issues, something had roofing issues, somebody had like electrical, like there's some fixer upper properties out there. Like, are there certain projects you're like, hey, this is too much work for us?
Not necessarily will stay away from a project that has more money. We've fixed property that we have to spend closer to 1 million. If my memory serves me right, it's more of really, is the seller willing to do the project with us? Foundation issues, yes. Typically, once we are under contract and the seller or the agent didn't know about it or they didn't disclose about it, we'll eventually find that out after we've done the home inspections. If we can fix it in a reasonable time frame and the seller is okay with it, they're willing to wait for us to fix it, then we can make it work. It shouldn't be an issue. We're very flexible. Really depends on if it's going to make sense for the sellers or not. Of course, our underwriting team also want to make sure that this property will not stay on the market for years. We don't want our funds to be tied up on the property that's not going to sell in the open market.
How is the 6 to 10% calculated? I know you mentioned the holdback, how that's calculated. What about the 6 to 10%? How does that vary? Is it based on the amount of work?
The holding fee, or the 6 to 10%, includes the holding fee. But just want to emphasize, it could be more, it could be less. So our fee structure, we do have a 4.99% base fee. And then upon ownership of Zoom Casa after the initial transaction, we do have a 0.99% holding fee every 30 days, which is tax deductible. It's also prorated, meaning if we sell the property within 2 weeks or 6 weeks, we're not going to charge the entire. It's going to be based on the exact number of days. Now, just to give you a little bit of context, on average, we own properties nationwide around 118 days. So let's just round it off to 120 days, including the renovations. In California, typically it's much less, as long as it's not in a very rural area. So if you do the math, that's going to average around 6 to 10%.
So you said 4.99 plus 0.99, so like less than 1% per month, basically. And
Correct.
that's based on the amount that you guys advance to the owner, or is that based on how is that or is that based on the projected sales price, or what is that based off of?
The 4.99% is base, so it doesn't matter if we're buying a property for 3 million or buying property for 500,000. Same thing with the holding fee. So it's really depends on how soon we can sell it for.
Every month it goes up by 0.99. So like, let's say it takes you guys 30 days to sell the property. It'll be 5.99, 60 days, 6.99, 70, 90 days, 7.99. And basically, it kind is there a cap to it? Meaning like, is there a cap or does it just go until the property sells?
It goes until the property sell. That's why it's important, once the property is on the resale side, we do have an associate that will be working with the listing agent, because there's going to be some sort of a break even point. Because sometimes a seller will stick to, since they're going to be the one dictating the resale price. We're hoping it's going to be reasonable and it's going to be supported by the listing agent's comps or comparative analysis. Since they have the ability to reject the offer and if they want to accept an offer after 30 days, typically we sit down with them. We sit down with the listing agent, and we wanted to see if what type of activities are going on. Usually, when there's no traction after 30 days for whatever reason, we typically suggest some sort of a price adjustment. Normally, we would advise 2% adjustment till we get some buyer. So we still collaborate with the listing agent and the seller at that point. Now, there are some sellers that are heavily involved. There are some sellers who would just let their listing agent make a decision for them.
Whenever it's an advancement, so you guys aren't taking ownership of the property, basically, in other words, is what I hear you guys saying, right? It's basically like so the owner's still in control of all of the decisions as it relates to the offer. They're in control as to how much it gets renovated for. They're in control of the listing price. They're in control as to any negotiations. At least that's what it sounds like.
Correct. However, after a certain period of time, we do, uh, let's say we're not getting any traction. Typically, we get involved, and then we do have an associate that will be working with the listing agent. Now, I don't want to miss this part because I think you've mentioned something about the ownership. So I wanted to make this clear. After the initial transaction, title will be under Zoom Casa. We do have a legally binding agreement between the seller and Zoom Casa on how the proceeds will go from then on. So, but again, to clarify, the ownership will be under Zoom Casa LLC, but we do have an
A
agreement that
binding.
states.
So
Mhm.
basically, that 2 week period, escrow closes. You guys take title of the property. You guys give 50 to 70% of the money to the owner or whatever it is. And then after that, you guys start the renovation, and then they'll receive a second paycheck once the property sells with you guys, basically.
Exactly.
What does the proposal look like? Like, so let's say I'm a listing agent, or let's say that I have a listing for you guys. Do I present the property to you guys? And what does that look like? What's included in that proposal? Is it like, look, this is what we think we could sell it for. This is how much we think it's going to be in repairs. Or is that the second phase once we actually open up escrow? Or what does that original offer look like?
If the more information we gathered from the listing agent who brought us a deal, the better for us. Because especially if they can give us an information about the ARV or the after repair value.
Mhm.
Because if we can see if the after repair value makes sense, we can tell the seller that, hey, you can potentially net more by doing this route. Now, ARV is important. Mortgage payoff is really important because if our advance rate that we can accommodate will not be enough to cover the payoff balance, it's not going to work. Because one of the reasons why our program was conceived is because some of the sellers, they don't want to be a contingent buyer, especially in a hot market.
Mhm.
So if they don't have enough equity, it might not work. Another thing is, we wanted to know the as is value. We're gonna run our numbers here on the back end. The listing agent will typically give us an idea based on the comps there. And then if they can provide us the condition of the property or maybe give us an idea how much we need to put in on the renovation so we can sell it for a certain amount, that would be super helpful. And what we'll do, we will write a net sheet, a proposal with the net sheet showing the amount of money that they can get upfront, and then the potential proceeds they're going to get on the resale side, showing that if we sell it for more, they get more, and vice versa, because they get more certainty on the initial transaction. Because before we close, they already know how much they're going to get based on the purchase price, if it appraised on target, and then how much they're going to net because they know the payoff balance. And then
Got it.
once it makes sense for the seller, we do encourage Jose that we have a conversation or some sort of a Zoom call or a face-to-face meeting with the seller, because we want to make sure that they are aware of the right expectations. Because I think we've had some experience in the past wherein an agent will oversell our program just for the sake of commission, and not realizing that the seller probably would net more if they just put it on the market. That's why we prefer really having a conversation with the seller, not unless you're a listing agent who's done a number of transactions with us.
And I'm guessing too that there's more value for the company if the property needs some sort of work, where as is it's selling for less, and with the renovations it'll sell for more. Basically, that's kind of what I'm guessing. Just because, like, if we're just putting it right back on the market at the same or without doing any work, there's probably not much force to or appreciate, like sweat equity that's being added to the property, as opposed to the property that I have in mind right now. It needs some work, and I'm imagining that if we did that work, it would sell for more, basically, which would allow for a minimum of that 6 to 10% that Zoom Casa charges. It would be basically, it would allow for that because we're forcing the value up by doing some renovations.
That is correct. I mean, on paper, that's the perfect scenario. However, for us, if it's going to take longer, that means the holding fee will be stretched to a longer period of time, and the seller might not be happy. That's why we will always want to be transparent when it comes to longer renovation, because we tell them, hey, it might take us 4 months to finish the project, and depending, let's say, if we finish the project in December, it's so hard for us to get eyeballs because during the holidays, we're probably not going to be able to sell it. We have to wait for another 2 months to get more traction. And so we run the numbers with them in front of them. Hey, it might not be a good fit for you. Yes, it would benefit us, but if you think about our business structure, as much as possible, we want to have a faster turnover because again, that's the only time we get our money back for all the money that we upfront.
And that
But
benefits everybody if it's a faster turn. So even you guys would want to stay away from larger rehabs if possible, just something that you can get, like even some light cosmetic work like paint, acoustic removal, flooring, like maybe painting the kitchen cabinets, adding countertops, that type of repairs.
correct. Yeah. If it's a quick cosmetic update, it's going to be a perfect scenario for everybody. Now, I wanted to emphasize that we've done a lot of deals with sellers who are in a distress situation financially. As long as our advance rate can accommodate the payoff balance, we save them for pre-foreclosure, having a bad credit score. We can do that. And sometimes when we're dealing with distress situations, they don't really care how much we sell it for. They're more concerned about how much money they're going to get up front, and if we can help them, you know, leave that situation. Of course, we still have to work with the listing agent if we have to spend a lot of money on the renovation, if we can get it back. Because for us, we want to make sure that once the property is resold, we're able to get all the funds we've put up front and our fee, which is the way we are compensated, the 6 to 10% average.
What else do you think that we should know about the forward program, or what else have we missed that maybe we haven't talked about that agents or consumers have questions about?
It looks like we've covered most of it. I think what's important to point out is Zoom Casa started as a pre-sale home prep, and then since the inception of the company, we were exclusive with Berkshire Hathaway for a time. If you go to their website, you'll see that they've white labeled our program. You'll see you'll see Apex, you'll see Pinnacle, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see it says something like powered by Zoom Casa.
Hmm.
Same thing with Sotheby's brokerage. If you look at their services, you'll see some of their services called white glove. So they white labeled it. If you look at the bottom, you'll see powered by Zoom Casa. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because we are not like any other iBuyers wherein listing agents or agents will bring us a deal and we're going to eliminate them from out of the equation. We always use them as the listing agent as long as the seller is okay with it. Another thing is we work with agents nationwide by providing them with a tool wherein, if, let's say you're going to have a listing appointment tomorrow and you wanted to see if it's going to work for the Zoom Casa structure, you can share us the address. We're going to run our numbers. And then we can even sign an RPA with our addendum explaining the program. So at least when you sit down with them, instead of you just trying to get the listing, you can give them several options, including the Zoom Casa route. Now, in my experience personally, a lot of the times because of the uniqueness of our structure, a lot of the seller will say, "Let's just put it on the market," unless they're in a rush to get majority of the proceeds. Let's say they decide to put it on the market and the property needs some TLC, but they don't want to get involved in it. Typically, they'll put it on the market, and once they get the realistic feedback from the market that they need some TLC, then they realize, okay, my listing agent is correct that we need to do some home improvements, but they don't want to use their own funds. Then they go to the Zoom Casa route.
What percentage of the time would you guys say that you guys do renovations versus just putting it back on the market the way that it is?
Last year in 2022, more than 50%. Don't quote me on last year, but I know 2022, we have more than 50% of our transactions didn't need any home improvements. And the reason for that is because of the buy before you sell. And since it's a hot market at that time, the market price is steadily going up, and without even doing anything, the seller gets to participate on the upside by just putting it back on the market. Because it's funny when we deal with we purchased a lot of properties that are on the market and that are not selling, and just the fact that we cleaned it up and it became vacant, it's easier for us to sell it. Even the listing agent are surprised. I think there's few things why it's happening. When the property is days on market is lower, you get more eyeballs, and then at the same time, if the property is clean and staged, and there's the listing agent is not experiencing any logistical problems in terms of showing it, because you don't have to worry about scheduling it between the buyers and the sellers, because you can just put a lock or a Supra, and it's available for showing 24/7 in a showcase condition.
So it makes it a lot easier, and the seller is able to move on to their next property basically at that point. How do you guys determine which contractors to use basically, or does the owner have any input on that?
We do have vendors nationwide, so we're not a contractor. I just want to emphasize that. We do have project managers in-house and designers nationwide. Contractors, sometimes we will encounter this. The listing agent has their own contractors that they want to use, or maybe the sellers wants to use their own contractors. We're happy to manage them as long as they're licensed and insured as required by law.
And then if somebody wanted to send a deal to get underwritten, what's the process to do that?
Sure. They can call me directly. If I'm not available, that's going to be directed to some of my colleagues. So the number is 213-340-3286, or they can just email me directly at joey.ramos@zoomcasa.com. So again, that's joey.ramos@zoomcasa.com.
I do want to say thank you, Joey, for taking the time and coming on the show and explaining this to me. I hope that this video helps other agents better understand the program whenever they receive the offers. The analogy of the two checks made it a lot simpler. The fee structure made it a lot simpler for me to understand. So me personally walking away from it, I feel like I have a better understanding of the program. So I do want to say thank you to our viewers. If you've enjoyed this episode, we had Joey Ramos, account executive at Zoom Casa. We talked about how does a Zoom Casa cash offer work, and we talked about fees, the proposals, the structures, ownership, um, points, everything. So thank you again, Joey, and to our viewers. Until next time.